Hey, what's up? It's Yuno from Yunami, and in today's video we explain why and how Shoto Todoroki will awaken blue flames. The reason for this is because it's clear that Shoto will fight Dabi, who is much stronger than Shoto at this moment, so Shoto has to get much stronger. And of course because Shoto is supposed to become stronger than Endeavor. First we explain how exactly the Todoroki fire quirk works, then we show the difference between blue and orange fire, and finally we explain why and how Shoto will be able to create blue flames. This video does not contain any manga spoilers, so it's safe for anime only as well as manga readers. Also, only a small percentage of the people who watch our videos are actually subscribed, so if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video, let's go! So what exactly is Shoto's quirk? I know, that is such a trivial question, but we have to go through it. You will see that it is very important. Shoto's quirk is called half cold, half hot. This gives him the ability to create ice on the right side of his body and flames on the left side. Although he is able to use both elements at the same time, he is not used to it and must practice using both skills at the same time in order to fully master his quirk. So there's still a lot of room for Shoto to become much stronger. The important half of his quirk for this video is his fire. To understand his fire ability, we can simply reflect Endeavor's quirk on Shoto's fire, because Shoto's quirk is simply a mixture of Endeavor's fire and his mother's ice. Endeavor's quirk is called Hell Flame and allows him to create and manipulate large amounts of extremely intense fire. He can easily control the shape and the temperature of the flame. If he uses too much fire, his body overheats, resulting in exhaustion of his stamina and impairment of his physical functions. This phenomenon is not only something that occurs exclusively with Endeavor, but happens to all people with normal quirk functionality. It seems like an inconvenient disadvantage at first that keeps people from getting stronger, but it's actually a very helpful part of the quirk itself, and probably the most important aspect of the Quirk Factor. The Quirk Factor refers to all the physical and genetic traits that make up a person. This includes the ability of the quirk, as well as any biological mechanisms that enable this ability to function properly. Because of the Quirk Factor, a quirk's user's body has natural adaptations to protect itself from any harm that the quirk could do. Without this natural limitation, people will be seriously injured while using their quirks. And that's exactly why Endeavor's body overheats, because his Quirk Factor protects him from overuse and therefore automatically makes it impossible for him to reach the temperature of blue flames, as it would otherwise damage his body. But as with everything else in our world, there are always very rare anomalies in genetics, which in the case of quirks in My Hero Academia, allows people with such quirk anomalies to use their quirks without having a natural protection, so they can use their quirks without any restrictions. The best two examples of this are Aoyama and Dabi. Aoyama suffers from a birth defect, although we do not know for sure whether it is a general physical defect that any quirkless person could have or if it has something to do with his quirk. However, it doesn't matter, because normally his Quirk Factor should have developed his body in such a way that he couldn't possibly be born with a birth defect that could affect his quirk usage. But as already explained, Aoyama is a rare exception. To be able to use his quirk at all, he has to wear a special belt, and even then his quirk is so strong that he can only fire the laser for a little longer than 1 second at a time. Otherwise he will suffer from intestinal problems. Sounds petty at first, but imagine what would happen without the belt and for 10 seconds instead of just 1. And the problem with Dabi is pretty obvious. Something in his inheritance of his Quirk Factor went wrong, such that his body is unable to withstand the extremely intense heat he produces with his quirk. Whether genetic or anomaly, it's not important for this video. Just the fact that this dysfunction is actually the case with Dabi. He's unable to withstand his own quirk because he does not have the natural self-defense mechanism that will protect him from overheating. This causes serious injuries every time he uses his quirk, which is pretty obvious as he's literally burned all over the place, to the point that his skin falls off. And it was this natural limitation that kept Endeavor from becoming stronger than All Might. He knew that his body could never exceed the limits of normal fire. His obsession grew so strong that he tried to create the ultimate quirk for his children, so that they could at least accomplish what he couldn't. So he married a woman with a nice quirk and had so many children until one of them would have a quirk that will combine both of their parents' abilities, which was the case with Shoto. The idea of Shoto's character is that his body is the perfect mix of his mother and father. His ice and fire abilities are in perfect balance, allowing him to regulate his internal temperature, which in turn should enable him to create massive flames. His ice ability slows him down, but his fire helps him to maintain a healthy temperature through thermoregulation. This enables him to reach extremely high and low temperatures, Regulating internal temperature is a big deal, as overheating, for example, is a major disadvantage, as we have already seen with Endeavor when Endeavor uses too much fire for too long. Before my partner Yami continues, take a little moment to like this video. With your support, we can continue the My Hero Academia content on this channel. And if you want to see more My Hero Academia videos, then subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell, so you don't miss any of our new videos. We do weekly My Hero Academia content. I will give the mic to Yami now. Have fun.
So, Todoroki has the potential to raise the temperature of his fire to create blue flames. And to understand why Todoroki's flames can turn blue, we need to understand the element of fire. Normal fire has 3 colors. Yellow is the lowest temperature, then red or orange, which is the standard average temperature of fire that is used by Shoto and Endeavor. And lastly, the blue part, which is the hottest part of a flame, which is the fire Dabi uses. The fact that Shoto and Endeavor are able to regulate the temperature of their flames, and therefore the exact temperature itself is not part of the fire quirk, but is a part of the evolution of such quirks, meaning that fire turns blue when the required temperature is reached. Endeavor is the perfect example for this, as we have already seen how he could create blue flames when creating a momentarily burst. It should be noted here that he only used these blue flames for a brief moment, and not over a long period of time or several times in a row. So let's briefly summarize the most important things. Dabi's Quirk Factor is defective, which means that his body has no protection. So he can use the maximum heat of fire, which is the blue flame, causing serious injuries to himself. Endeavor's Quirk Factor protects him from harming himself with natural restrictions, but prevents him from reaching high temperatures in order to be able to use the blue flames constantly. And Todoroki is able to regulate his own temperatures so that he can use stronger fire without overheating like Endeavor, and at the same time keeping his body free from injuries. That's the idea behind Todoroki's quirk, but in reality, Shoto has not yet mastered his quirk yet. Due to his long-lasting conflict with his father, Shoto has developed a habit of preferring his ice ability, even though fire would sometimes be a better option. This resentment also made it difficult for him to control his flames. It was only when he accepted his fire as his own ability and part of his own quirk that he began to practice using fire. And now he's beginning to forgive his father and thus to break away from the emotional chains that have always prevented him from using the full potential of his flames. He could finally begin to use and develop his quirk to the fullest, both physically and mentally. Because of all the years he has denied his fire, he has almost no experience using it in actual combat situations. So he has never been able to discover its true potential. While practicing for his ultimate move, he claimed that using both skills at the same time slowed him down, which is due to the difficulty of maintaining both skills at the same level. If he uses one of the two elements excessively without keeping the other at the same level, his own body temperature suffers. The half of the ice causes frostbite and the half of the fire causes heat stroke. Shoto tries to make up for this weakness by altering between ice and fire. This shows how little Shoto has actually mastered his quirk and how much more he can grow if he manages to keep both abilities in balance at the same time. So when can we expect Todoroki to fully master his quirk and thus awaken the blue flames? I think it's safe to say that it will happen either just before or in middle of the fight against Dabi, which is supposed to be one of the main fights for Shoto in the entire series. We have heard from the author of My Hero Academia, Horikoshi, that the series has reached its final phase, which doesn't mean that the series will end anytime soon, but we can definitely expect the show to reach its climax in the next 2 or 3 years, which would be in the anime a few years later. We've all been waiting for the fight between Dabi and Shoto, and for Shoto to have a realistic chance, he definitely has to be able to use the blue flames. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Will Shoto be able to use the blue flames? Now that we have talked about his blue flames, how strong can Shoto theoretically get? We know that while it sounds harsh, Endeavor created Shoto just so he could become the strongest hero ever. Of course, Endeavor has changed in the meantime and now prioritizing other values. But his original intention was successful, with which Shoto can theoretically become stronger than All Might. But can Shoto compete with Deku and all of One For All abilities? It's hard to believe that this could be possible, but considering that Deku and Bakugo are both rivals, it suggests that Bakugo will get so strong that he will definitely be able to keep up with Deku. So if Bakugo can keep up with Deku, which is necessary for a good plot and rivalry, I see no reason why Shoto can't keep up with Bakugo, and therefore also with Deku. I think in terms of strength, Horikoshi will make all three roughly on the same level. So the best we could do is to assume their future hero rankings. I think we can all agree that the top 3 heroes will be Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto. I honestly don't see a good explanation where either Deku or Bakugo would end up as hero number 3, so this will most likely be Todoroki's position in the future. Do you guys agree with this? If yes, who do you think will be the number 1 hero? Deku or Bakugo? And if you disagree, feel free to comment your top 3 future hero rankings. See you guys in the next video. Have a good day. Yami out.